Good afternoon. I wanted to invite you to think about, what are undergrads going through post-COVID-19? And the interesting thing about the study was that we, as researchers, had undergrads come to us and asked for us to do this research project. And we were fortunate to get an internal grant. So the two undergrads were Amina and Jalen. So they're depicted with me in the center. And we had an undergrad writing and rhetoric professor, Dr. Panton, that worked with us. And Georgina is here, and she could introduce herself and we could move to the next slide. And I am actually a research professor in the School of Education.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you go to the next?
Sorry, okay. Just that it's freezing. Okay, so hi, I'm Georgina. I'm one of the co-investigators with Dr. Charlene Desir. This is what the research, this is also a grant-funded project, and this is what we're going to be discussing today. What is intellectual curiosity and the context? Also, the methodology we used and the data collection methods. The data analysis, some of the results from this data analysis and the research study, and then the conclusions of our research study. Again, we're just going to focus on one area of our research because it was, well, the study was a mixed method study, therefore it's very long. So we're going to focus on one part of the qualitative section of the mixed methods study. So first, just to give a little bit of context on our study, we're going to go ahead and explain what's the importance of intellectual curiosity. Intellectual curiosity is basically an engine of inquiry. The curiosity is going to serve as a critical pathway for interesting and sustaining knowledge acquisition. Based on our research, there are two main types of curiosity. The first one is going to be the perceptual curiosity, and the second one is going to be the epistemic curiosity as the desire for knowledge. And this is basically the most we're going to be focusing on the epistemic curiosity, rather than the one that it's more visual and sensory. And the third type would be the learning spaces, which is basically the spaces we took into consideration for our research study, which are the home, which is basically the first space where we get the intellectual curiosity. Then the school, which is also the one that we're going to focus on for this presentation, we're going to focus on school, which is the second space, and also the influence of technology as a third space.
So when we were interviewing students, we interviewed undergrads and they filled out surveys, and really it complemented some of the research around the idea of the cultural influence. Like culture plays a key role in shaping the students' motivation and attitudes towards education and the social environment. And that includes parental and family involvement in them pursuing undergraduate education as a whole. In a contextual understanding, students engage more when teachers demonstrate an understanding of their broader context, the factors, their community, their culture as well. Next slide. So, some of the issues is looking at internal and external influences on the students' learning. And so this was part of the literature, which the majority of the literature, our undergrads took time to dig deep. And home culture is very important to the students as they entered. And we found this in the data. Students' home life and cultural background shape their approach to learning. Their self-perceiving and emerging identities also are central. How students view themselves impacts their engagement with education, the reflection that they see in the school, in the coursework. And school community, the broader educational environment, influence students' motivation. We saw a lot of students were interested in clubs and that sort of thing. The classroom environment, it's the immediate learning space that affects the students' engagement and curiosity and their engagement with the professors. So when we think about the classroom environment and intellectual curiosity, it's a critical space. The classroom is a critical space where intellectual curiosity can be nurtured or stifled. There's a funds of knowledge approach, incorporating students' rich backgrounds into the curriculum fosters curiosity. And teachers are encouraged to investigate students' home lives and community to inform curriculum design. So if it fits, try to see how their present life can influence what's happening in the classroom. And home and school or spaces are when it's included, improves intellectual curiosity and learning outcomes. Next slide. I can't hear you. You're on mute, Georgina.
So sorry, it's just that my computer is freezing. Okay, so the methodology and design we used, after obtaining IRB approval, we started our study. It was a sequential exploratory mixed method design. We sent several surveys first to over 100 undergraduate students. However, we were able to obtain a sample of 100 undergrads. It's a mid-sized university in the Southeastern of the United States. We used first a demographic and intellectual curiosity survey that we designed. Then in that survey, we asked if they wanted to participate in interviews and or the reflective journals. So we went ahead and from those 100 surveys, more or less 20 to 25 participants decided to be part of the interview process, which were one-on-one interviews. And also we had the reflective journals where we had a Google Classroom and they had to be writing several writing prompts that would be able to connect with our research study. Our research question, the main research question that guided our study is the following: how do home, classroom, and digital environments contribute to students' learning experiences? The analysis for the quantitative part, it was descriptive and inferential statistics. And then for the qualitative part, which were the reflective journals and also the interviews, we used the IPA, which is the Interpretative Phenomenology analysis. So first, from the results of the qualitative part, we're going to focus on how students defined intellectual curiosity in the interviews. It was very interesting, the different definitions we obtained. One of the students said that it was brain power. Another student said it was motivation. This quote is very interesting. The student mentioned that he or she believes that the curiosity is what drives her, because if I'm not curious, I don't care about the topic. The other one, it's like a spark for learning. And the other kind of definition that we obtain is thirst for knowledge. Also, under that definition, it says about enhancing or limiting intellectual curiosity. Some of the school life limitations, these are some quotes that we found out, but it's basically some limitations, a generational disconnect. This is in the classroom. Many of our students found that the generational disconnect between the professors and themselves. So they kind of share their experiences, and also they share about being open-minded in this intellectual curiosity process.
So, we had a lot of conversation with the students as they discuss their interaction with professors. So these are some particular quotes around when professors stimulate learning for students. Just to share, they talked about the genuine care. They want students to feel cared for by their teachers, and the personal learning, and the passion for teachers. I like this quote. For me, it's always a professor. It's never the class. If I have a good professor, I'm gonna want to learn. So we found that, and then there's some broader perspectives of talking about the different perspectives that they want to come into the space to help them in their learning. And you could read some of these quotes in the interest of time. And of course, identity, personality, and professors was just a huge part. I don't know if I was expecting to see this, but the students really want to be seen in the class. They want their identities to be incorporated if it's able to learn about your students and allow them to incorporate their identities in assignments if they need to be. They want to have a personal connection. And one of the topics was being non-discriminatory. Like they see when professors are being discriminatory in some way, and that affects them with whether it is the technology shift or with particular students, like they notice this and this is happening in front of them. And professors' personality, like they want to feel that the professors are happy to be there and building knowledge with them. And that helps with their intellectual curiosity. One of the things we had a lot of information about the teaching styles and how that incorporates with theirs. And some of them is interactive teaching. They said, well, why don't we have more interactive teaching in addition to the textbooks? Engagement and motivation. What motivates them to learn? And it's if they're not feeling that they're encouraged. And exploring students' interests. I wish professors would explore more of students' interests and engage them and build knowledge with them and respect the knowledge that they're bringing into the class. And then a whole conversation of what can happen beyond the textbooks. So this was some of the feedback we were getting. So there was some critique of professors and their interaction with the students. One thing is the technology integration. Of course, some students felt that it wasn't horrible if the technology wasn't completely integrated, but that they could ask students for help as well in this process. Students' perspectives around how they think professors should interact. And for this particular quote, not just think about how they want to teach us, but think about how we want to be taught, not just like the technology base, but about social and political aspects. So they feel that there's like, how are they being prepared for the global world in the classroom? And they feel that's constantly not engaging. And for professors to be open to their questions, and whatever questions they are is a sign of engagement, and embracing students' knowledge into the classroom as well.
Okay, so then the last thing we were able to obtain was the sense of belonging and student engagement, where they mention about the classroom environment. Students are most likely to engage deeply with their learning when they are able to perceive their classroom as a whole, as a welcoming and organized and supportive space. Some of the essential elements, students shared with us that they expect the college classroom environments to be inclusive, to have clear organizational structure, also to have positive interpersonal relationships and alignment between their goals and the classmates' values. And some of the post-pandemic importance, we were able to see many of these students, or most of these students, took their last high school years in their houses with the pandemic. They were like really struggling with this, and there's a need for students to feel comfortable and supported in their academic environments, and also, exacerbated by the shift to remote and hybrid learning models. These are some of our conclusions. Our conclusions is basically we need to have interconnectedness between home, school, and digital environments. There has to be educator insights. Understanding these diverse settings provides valuable insights for creating engaging environments. Cultural awareness, we need to acknowledge the students' cultural, social, and technological landscapes to be able to get them engaged and have a deeper inquiry into their learning process. And finally, adaptive teaching. Educators should adapt their practices to create a more curiosity-driven learning environment. And that's it. Thank you. I don't know if anyone has any question.